The bullet grazed his shoulder as Nathan shielded her with his body, blood seeping through his security uniform. "I'm just the gatekeeper," he whispered, their eyes meeting. Elise Blackwood's trembling hand touched his face, the first time a woman had in 7 years. Dawn breaks over a city still half asleep. In a sparse apartment on the east side, Nathan Miller opens his eyes before the alarm sounds. 42 years have carved lines around his eyes that speak of burdens carried too long alone. The room contains little beyond necessity: a bed, a dresser, a single framed photograph of a young girl with his eyes. No other personal touches soften the walls, no evidence of a life beyond survival. He moves with mechanical precision, coffee brewed black and strong, 50 push-ups on the worn carpet, shower exactly 3 minutes. The routine hasn't varied in 3 years. The mirror reflects a face weathered beyond its years, stubble peppered with gray, eyes that have seen too much and expected too little in return. In the small bedroom adjacent to his, Nathan lays out clothes for his daughter Sophie, now 12. She hasn't spoken more than necessary since her mother's car accident. An accident Nathan wasn't there to prevent because he was working an extra security shift. The guilt wraps around his chest each morning, as familiar as breathing. "Math test today?" he asks, as they drive to school in his aging sedan. Sophie nods, eyes fixed on the passing scenery. Nathan watches her walk away, backpack slung over one shoulder, her posture carrying a weight no child should bear. They are 2 survivors, shipwrecked on the same island, unable to build a bridge between them. At the exclusive Westlake Estate community, Nathan slides into his security booth at the main gate. His colleagues see him as reliable but reserved. The ex-Marine who never shares war stories, the widower who works double shifts without complaint. He has become part of the landscape, as overlooked as the cameras he monitors. Through his windowed booth, Nathan observes the residents in their luxury vehicles. Lawyers, executives, surgeons, people whose lives remain uninterrupted by tragedy. He checks IDs, opens gates, monitors security feeds. His presence acknowledged with the briefest of nods, if acknowledged at all. As dusk falls, he notices an unfamiliar black Mercedes idling just beyond the gate's sensor range. The driver's face is obscured, but something about the car's positioning triggers the instincts Nathan has suppressed for years. He makes a note in the log but dismisses the unease. These days, he expects nothing, good or bad. What Nathan doesn't realize is that tomorrow, this invisible man's life will collide with forces he spent years avoiding, awakening parts of himself he thought had died alongside his wife. Rain lashes against the security booth as Nathan works the night shift, a replacement for a sick colleague. The storm has knocked out power to sections of the estate, including the main gate's automatic mechanism. Nathan manually checks vehicles, standing in the downpour, uniform soaked through. A silver Audi pulls up, windshield wipers fighting the deluge. The woman inside lowers her window just enough to hand over an ID card. "Elise Blackwood," she says, her voice carrying a subtle authority that suggests she's unused to being questioned. Nathan doesn't recognize the name. Not a regular resident. The ID shows her as the wife of Richard Blackwood, owner of the mansion on Lakeview Drive that has sat largely empty since Nathan began working here. "I'll need to call this in, ma'am," Nathan says, noticing her tense grip on the steering wheel, the nervous glance toward her rearview mirror. "Please, just open the gate," she insists, her composed facade cracking slightly. "My husband is expecting me." Protocol dictates verification for unfamiliar visitors, but something in her eyes, a controlled fear, makes Nathan hesitate. Before he can decide, headlights flood his peripheral vision as the black Mercedes he'd noticed yesterday speeds toward the gate. "Let me through now," Elise says with quiet urgency. Nathan's dormant instincts flare. He presses the manual override. The gate begins to swing open, and he motions for her to proceed. As her car passes, the Mercedes accelerates, attempting to slip through behind her. Without thinking, Nathan steps into the gap, blocking the vehicle's path with his body. The car screeches to a halt, inches from his legs. 2 men emerge, expensive suits, hard eyes, professional, dangerous. "Estate policy," Nathan states flatly. "1 vehicle per authorization. We are with Mrs. Blackwood. the driver says, his tone suggesting this is a formality easily dismissed. Then you'll need her to confirm that. The men exchange glances. Listen, rent-a-cop. You can wait for proper clearance or leave, Nathan interrupts, his voice carrying the quiet authority that once commanded men in combat zones. His hand rests near the taser at his belt, a gesture not lost on the men. After a tense standoff, they retreat to their vehicle, backing away but remaining parked outside the gate. Nathan calls it in to the estate's security office, then returns to his booth, shaking off rain and adrenaline. An hour later, the mansion on Lakeview lights up like a beacon in the storm. Nathan's radio crackles with an emergency call. Possible intruder at the Blackwood residence. He arrives to find the front door ajar, a window shattered. Drawing his taser, Nathan enters, calling out his presence. He finds Elise Blackwood in the study, a phone to her ear, her other hand pressing a cloth to a cut on her forehead. She ends her call abruptly when she sees him. Security, he identifies himself. Are you hurt? They broke in through the terrace, she explains, maintaining her composure despite the circumstances. I managed to trigger the alarm and they fled. Nathan secures the house before returning to her. The police are on their way. May I? He gestures to her injury. She allows him to examine the cut. It's superficial, he assesses, retrieving a first aid kit from a bathroom. As he cleans the wound, he notices fine tremors in her hands, the only outward sign of her fear. You're good at this, she observes. Marines, he explains simply. And now you guard gates. Something in her tone isn't condescension, but genuine curiosity. Nathan doesn't elaborate. The police arrive, take statements. The official story becomes that it was an attempted burglary, but Nathan recognizes the precision of the break-in, the disabled specific camera, the clean glass cut. This was professional. As the officers prepare to leave, Elise pulls Nathan aside. Those men at the gate? They weren't with me. I know. How? Your eyes, he says simply. You were afraid. Something shifts in her expression. Recognition that he sees beyond her carefully maintained facade. My husband is away on business often. I don't normally come here alone. Then why tonight? She considers him for a moment. Sometimes we need somewhere to breathe. The statement hangs between them, loaded with unspoken meaning. The police suggest she not stay alone. Elise makes a call, apparently to her husband, her tone shifting to something more guarded, more performative. After ending the call, she turns to Nathan. He's sending someone, but they won't arrive until morning. She hesitates. Would you? Would the estate security consider having someone remain until then? Protocol would have Nathan call in a replacement so he could return to his post, but instead he radios that he'll stay on site. He notices her relief, subtle but genuine. As the night deepens, they maintain a professional distance. Elise working on her laptop in the living room, Nathan patrolling the perimeter. But occasionally their paths cross, and in those moments, something unspoken passes between them. Two people recognizing something familiar in each other's solitude. Days pass. Nathan returns to his routine, but something has shifted. He finds himself watching for Elise's car, noting the days she comes to the estate and the days she doesn't. He tells himself it's professional concern. The break-in remains unsolved, the men in the Mercedes unidentified. Sophie notices the change. You seem different, she says one morning. The most words she's strung together in weeks. Different how? Nathan asks, surprised. She shrugs, retreating back into silence, but her observation lingers with him throughout his shift. At the Blackwood mansion, security upgrades are underway. A response to the break-in. Nathan is assigned to oversee the installation, bringing him back into Elise's orbit. He learns she's 38, educated at Yale, works as a corporate attorney despite her husband's wealth. She carries herself with a practiced perfection that Nathan recognizes as armor. On the third day of installations, Nathan arrives to find Elise in the garden, barefoot in jeans and a simple blouse, a stark contrast to her usual polished appearance. She's attempting to revive a neglected rose garden, her hands dirty, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. My mother planted these, she explains when she notices him watching, before my father sold the property to Richard. Nathan kneels beside her, examines a withered plant. This one might be beyond saving. I refuse to accept that, she says with quiet determination. Sometimes, Things just need time and the right kind of attention. Their eyes meet briefly, and Nathan feels something crack in his carefully maintained detachment. He offers to help, and they work side by side, hands in the soil, conversation flowing more easily in this shared task than it had across polished desks and security reports. Elise asks about Sophie, and Nathan finds himself sharing more than he intended. The silence that fell between them after Megan's death, his fear that he's failing as a father. Elise doesn't offer empty reassurances. Instead, she listens with a presence that makes Nathan feel truly seen for the first time in years. In turn, she reveals fragments of her own life. Her marriage to Richard Blackwood, 20 years her senior, powerful in business and politics. He was my mentor first, she explains. He saw potential in me that others missed. But there's something in her tone that suggests the relationship has shifted from what it once was. Their conversations continue over the following weeks. Nathan breaks protocol, bringing coffee from the shop outside the estate rather than the security office's stale brew. Elise shares books from the mansion's library, volumes on gardening, yes, but also poetry that speaks to grief and renewal. One evening, Nathan receives an urgent call from Sophie's school. She's had a panic attack, her first in months. He finds her in the nurse's office, pale and withdrawn. As he drives her home, his phone buzzes with a text from Elise, a question about the new security cameras. He doesn't respond. That night, as Sophie finally sleeps, Nathan sits at their small kitchen table, the weight of his responsibilities pressing down. His phone buzzes again, Elise checking if everything is all right. In a moment of weakness, he calls her. Sophie had a rough day, he explains, surprising himself with his openness. Do you want to talk about it? Elise asks, her voice gentle. Nathan finds himself sharing his deepest fear, that Sophie's silence isn't just grief, but blame. The night of the accident, I was supposed to pick Megan up, but there was an incident at work, and I asked her to drive herself. If I had just been there... Nathan, Elise says softly, we can't protect everyone we love, every moment, no matter how much we want to. Something in her voice suggests personal knowledge of this truth. When he asks, she hesitates before revealing that she and Richard lost a child. A stillbirth 3 years ago. After that, something changed between us. He buried himself in work, and I became very good at pretending everything was fine. This shared understanding of loss creates a bridge between them. They begin meeting outside the estate, innocent encounters at first. Coffee at a shop halfway between their worlds. A farmer's market where Nathan brings Sophie, who seems marginally more animated in Elise's gentle presence. Nathan notices the gradual awakening in himself, the way colors seem sharper, how he finds himself noticing the changing leaves, the way Sophie's rare smiles feel like unexpected gifts rather than painful reminders of what they've lost. But as they grow closer, Nathan also becomes aware of surveillance emerging from her eyes, the black Mercedes appearing with increasing frequency, a sense of being watched during his shifts. He keeps this concern from Elise, not wanting to disturb the fragile peace she seems to have found in their friendship. Then comes the night that changes everything. Nathan receives a panicked call from Elise at 2 a.m. She's at the mansion alone, convinced someone is trying to break in again. Nathan rushes there, bypassing protocols, driven by something stronger than professional duty. He finds the house secure, but Elise visibly shaken. She shows him a note left on her pillow, impossible to have been placed there without breaching security. The message is simple: he knows. Nathan suggests calling the police, but Elise refuses. You don't understand. Richard isn't just powerful, he's dangerous when he feels threatened. Threatened by what? Nathan asks, though part of him already knows the answer. Elise meets his gaze steadily. By anything he can't control, by anyone who sees the real me, not the version he created. The implication hangs between them, that their connection, innocent as it may have been in action, has awakened something that threatens the careful constructs of their separate lives. And now they've reached a point where they must either retreat to their respective solitudes or acknowledge that something profound has changed within both of them. As dawn breaks, they sit in silence on the terrace, neither quite ready to voice the choice before them. But when Elise's hand finds his across the table, Nathan doesn't pull away. And in that simple touch, a decision is made that will set in motion consequences neither could have anticipated. The next morning, Nathan calls in sick for the first time in 3 years. After dropping Sophie at school, he drives to a storage unit on the outskirts of town. Inside, under a tarp, lies the remnants of his former life. Boxes of military commendations, specialized equipment, and a laptop he hasn't touched since transitioning to civilian life. The security consultant he once was, before marriage, before fatherhood, before loss, narrowed his world to mere survival. Had skills far beyond checking IDs at a gate, skills he deliberately buried alongside his ambitions. Nathan boots up the laptop, password muscle memory despite the years. He begins with public records. Richard Blackwood's business empire, political connections, charitable foundations. On the surface, the man is a pillar of success and respectability. But Nathan knows from experience that power casts shadows, and in those shadows, secrets thrive. He discovers Richard's first wife died under mysterious circumstances, ruled suicide, but the investigating detective retired suddenly with a generous pension shortly after. 3 of Richard's business rivals suffered abrupt downfalls following rumors of financial impropriety or personal scandals. The patterns emerge slowly but unmistakably. Nathan's phone buzzes, a text from Elise. "We need to talk, not at the house." She suggests a hiking trail outside town, far from surveillance cameras and listening devices. The precaution speaks volumes. They meet as afternoon shadows lengthen. Elise looks exhausted, her usual composure frayed at the edges. They walk in silence initially, the autumn leaves crunching beneath their feet, until they reach a viewpoint far from other hikers. "Richard called this morning," she finally says. "He's returning tomorrow, not next week as planned. He's never changed his schedule like this before. Do you think he knows about us?" Elise looks at him, a sad smile touching her lips. "There is no us in any way that would threaten him, Nathan. We haven't done anything wrong. But you're afraid of him anyway." She doesn't deny it. Instead, she reveals the true nature of her marriage. How Richard's mentorship evolved into control, how his support came with invisible strings, how his jealousy masqueraded as protection. "After we lost the baby, I wanted to leave. He made it clear that wasn't an option." "How much did you forget?" Nathan asks, the protective instinct he'd suppressed for years flaring hot and immediate. "Not directly. Richard never threatens. He demonstrates." His former assistant filed for divorce against her husband's wishes. Suddenly her husband got custody of their children, based on evidence that appeared out of nowhere. Elise looks out over the valley below. Richard doesn't just have money. He has information, connections in places that should be beyond influence. Nathan shares his own findings, watching Elise's expression shift from fear to resigned confirmation. "I've suspected much of this," she admits, but hearing it confirmed. She takes a deep breath. "I need to leave him, Nathan. I've been planning it for months, gathering evidence of his dealings, creating an insurance policy. The break-in at the mansion," Nathan realizes. "They weren't there for you. They were looking for whatever you've collected." Elise nods. "The night I came to the estate, I'd discovered Richard was having me followed. I needed to retrieve something from the safe, something that could protect me if I ever managed to leave." "And did you? Get what you needed?" "Yes." Her hand touches her jacket pocket unconsciously. "But it's not enough yet. There's more at his office. Files that would expose not just his business practices, but his connections to people who should never have power." Nathan knows he should walk away. His duty is to Sophie, to rebuilding their fractured life, not to diving back into dangerous waters. But looking at Elise, her intelligence and courage, her refusal to remain a prisoner to fear, awakens something in him that has been dormant since his wife's death. "Tell me what you need," he says simply. The plan forms quickly. Elise will maintain normalcy when Richard returns, while Nathan will use his security clearance and revived skills to access Richard's office building during a charity gala the following evening. Elise provides details only someone intimate with Richard's habits would know. The hidden keypad beneath his desk, the rotation of his safe combination, the patterns of the security guards. As twilight descends, they stand to leave, their breath visible in the cooling air. Elise hesitates, then reaches for Nathan's hand. "I'm sorry to pull you into this. You have Sophie to think about." I am thinking about her, Nathan replies. I want her to see that there are still things worth fighting for, people worth protecting. The words surprise him. They feel like something the man he used to be would say, not the hollow shell he's become. Their fingers remain intertwined for a moment longer than necessary. No kiss, no dramatic declaration, just the simple, profound contact of two people recognizing something in each other worth the risk of awakening. The following evening, as Richard and Elise attend the gala, Nathan moves through the office building with the calculated precision of his former life. He navigates security systems, timing patrol patterns, accessing Richard's private office through methods that leave no trace. In the hidden safe, he finds what Elise described: documents linking Richard to judicial bribes, blackmail operations, and worse. But among them is something unexpected: surveillance photos of Nathan himself, dating back months before he ever met Elise. Photos of him with Sophie at her school, at the grocery store, at Megan's grave. The realization hits with sickening clarity. Nathan wasn't randomly assigned to the Westlake estate. His position, his entire post-military career, has been orchestrated. Richard Blackwood has been watching him, long before Elise entered his life. But why? The answer comes as Nathan hears the elevator to the executive floor activate, hours before anyone should be returning from the gala. He secures the evidence, erases his digital footprints, and slips out through a service corridor, just as the elevator doors open. From the shadows, he watches Richard Blackwood emerge alone, moving with purpose toward his office. Nathan escapes the building unseen, but with the disturbing knowledge that nothing about his connection to Elise has been coincidental, and that the danger they face is far more personal than either of them realized. The morning after the office infiltration, Nathan waits for Elise at their arranged meeting spot, a quiet corner of a public park where surveillance would be difficult. She doesn't come. His calls go straight to voicemail, his discreet text messages unanswered. Dread settles in his stomach as he drives to the estate for his shift, maintaining the pretense of normalcy while every instinct screams that something is wrong. At the security office, he casually inquires about the Blackwoods, learning that Richard's car left early that morning. Unusual for a Saturday. Nathan debates his options. Going to the mansion directly would raise flags. Abandoning his post would trigger protocols. Instead, he accesses the security feed archives, scrolling back to the early morning hours. There, 3:17 a.m., Richard's car leaving the estate, passing Nathan's colleague at the gate. The camera angle doesn't show the back seat. At his lunch break, Nathan drives to Sophie's weekend program, signs her out early. "Dad?" she questions, concern in her eyes at his unusual behavior. "Just wanted to spend the day with you, kiddo," he says, forcing a calm he doesn't feel. He takes her to their apartment, establishing that they were home together all afternoon. An alibi. He packs a small bag, tells Sophie they might go visit her grandmother tomorrow. Then he makes a call to the one person from his former life he still trusts. Marcus, now a private investigator specializing in cases the police won't touch. "I need you to watch Sophie tonight," Nathan explains when Marcus arrives. "Don't answer the door. Don't let her near windows." Marcus studies his friend's face. "You're back in, aren't you? Whatever it is." Nathan doesn't confirm or deny, just hands over a sealed envelope. "If I'm not back by morning, this goes to the FBI field office. Agent Teresa Ramirez? No one else." As dusk falls, Nathan approaches the Blackwood mansion from the lakeside, avoiding security cameras. The house is lit, but quiet. He slips past the grounds' sensors, using knowledge gained from the installation he supervised, accessing the terrace door through a blind spot in coverage. Inside, the house feels wrong. Too still, too perfect. In the study, he finds Richard Blackwood waiting in a leather chair, crystal tumbler in hand, as if this intrusion were an appointed meeting. "Mr. Miller," Richard says, his voice cultured, controlled. "I was wondering when you'd arrive. You're earlier than I anticipated. Efficient, as your record suggested you would be." "Where is she?" Nathan asks, not bothering with pretense. Richard sips his drink. "My wife is indisposed at the moment. Women, so emotional when their illusions are shattered." He gestures to the chair opposite. "Please, sit. You've gone to considerable trouble to enter my home. The least I can offer is conversation." Nathan remains standing. "If you've heard her..." "Hurt Elise?" Richard's laugh is genuine. "You misunderstand the situation entirely. Elise isn't a victim, Mr. Miller. She's an architect." He slides a folder across the desk. Inside are photos. Nathan and his wife Megan, happy, years ago. Then Nathan in uniform, in combat zones. Surveillance reports on his military operations. Medical records from after his discharge. The fatal car accident report. "Your wife's death wasn't an accident," Richard says, watching Nathan's face. "The brake lines were cut, a technique familiar to someone with your background, though cruder than your usual work." The floor seems to shift beneath Nathan's feet. "What are you saying?" "That your guilt is misplaced. You didn't cause her death by asking her to drive that night. She was targeted because of who you are, what you were." Richard leans forward. "Or rather, because of what someone wanted you to become." "Elise," Nathan whispers, the betrayal burning through him. "No," Richard corrects, "the people Elise works for. The same people who arranged for you to be hired at Westlake Estate. The same people who have been watching you for years, waiting for you to be broken enough, isolated enough, to be useful." Nathan's mind races, reassessing every interaction, every seemingly chance encounter. "She approached me deliberately." Of course she did. The grieving widower, the ex-military man with specialized skills gone to waste, the dedicated father who might do anything to protect his child. Richard's expression shifts to something almost like sympathy. "You were perfectly positioned. Inside my security operation, but beneath notice. And you were vulnerable precisely where Elise excels, offering understanding, connection, hope." Richard stands, moves to the window. "What you don't know? What they miscalculated is that Elise and I haven't been husband and wife in any real sense for years. Our marriage is a business arrangement, a political alliance. I've known about her other loyalties for some time." The door opens, and Elise enters. She looks unharmed but tense, her eyes meeting Nathan's with an expression he can't read. "Tell him," Richard instructs her. "Tell him who you really work for." Elise's composure doesn't waver. "A government division that doesn't officially exist. We've been building a case against Richard for years. International arms deals, election interference, judicial manipulation." "And you needed me because," Nathan asks, the sense of betrayal threatening to overwhelm him. "Because you were already inside. Because your background made you valuable. Because," she hesitates, "because your psychological profile indicated you would respond to her particular approach," Richard finishes for her. "The devoted father, the man of principle beaten down by circumstance, longing for purpose." He refills his glass. "It's quite elegant, really. I almost admire the strategy." Nathan looks between them, these sophisticated opponents playing a game he's only beginning to understand. The break-in, the surveillance, the note, all staged? "Some," Elise admits. "Not all." "The evidence in Richard's office?" "Real," she says firmly. "Everything I told you about what he's done is true." "What she omits," Richard interjects, "is that her employers have done worse, all under the banner of national security." He turns to Elise. "Tell him about Operation Blacklight. Tell him who really authorized the strike that killed those children in Rahel Province. The operation that prompted his resignation from service." Elise's face pales. "That's classified." "Not to me," Richard says coldly. "Nothing is." Nathan's world narrows to a single devastating realization. He has been a pawn, manipulated by both sides of a conflict he didn't know existed. The connection he thought he'd found with Elise, the sense of purpose rekindled, all calculated to exploit his deepest vulnerabilities. And yet, the look in Elise's eyes contains something beyond calculation. The tremor in her voice when she speaks his name suggests a complication neither she nor her handlers anticipated. The standoff is interrupted by the sound of vehicles approaching. Multiple, moving fast. Security monitors show black SUVs breaching the gate. "It seems," Richard says calmly, "that your colleagues have decided to accelerate their timeline." Nathan makes a decision that will alter all their lives. He draws his weapon, not on Richard or Elise, but on the approaching threat. "Where's the evidence against him?" he asks Elise. "Nathan, you don't understand." "The evidence," he insists. "Now." When she hesitates, Richard surprisingly answers. "The Northwest safe room, behind the Monet." Nathan locks eyes with Elise. "You used me. You let me believe my wife's death was my fault when you knew the truth." "Not initially," she whispers. "I didn't know about Megan until later. By then..." "By then what?" he demands. "By then it wasn't just an operation anymore." Her eyes hold his, unflinching despite the advancing danger. "Choose now, Nathan. There's no middle ground left." In that moment, with armed operatives closing in and years of manipulation exposed, Nathan makes his choice. Not for Richard or Elise or their respective causes, but for the truth, for justice, for his daughter's future in a world where powerful forces treat ordinary lives as expendable. And that choice will demand the ultimate sacrifice. 6 months later, Sophie sits on the deck of a lakeside cabin, sketching the water birds that gather near the shore. She's speaking more these days, not a lot, but enough to make Nathan's heart lighten when he hears her voice. Inside, Nathan reviews documents spread across a rustic table, evidence that neither Richard Blackwood nor Elise's agency has been able to suppress, evidence that has prompted congressional hearings, resignations, criminal investigations. The truth, with all its complexity and moral ambiguity, gradually emerging into the light. The cost has been high. Nathan's security career is over. Richard Blackwood's empire is crumbling, though the man himself has vanished into the protection networks of the powerful. And Elise... The door opens. Elise enters carrying groceries, her hair longer now, her designer clothes replaced by jeans and flannel. The witness protection program has given her a new identity, but in these isolated moments she can be herself. Whoever that truly is after years of deception. "Sophie's actually talking to the birds," she says, setting down her bags. Full sentences. Nathan nods, still sometimes unsure how to reconcile what happened between them. The night at the mansion ended in chaos. Richard escaping in one direction, Nathan grabbing the evidence in Elise and fleeing in another, as operatives from multiple agencies converged. They survived because of Nathan's skills and Elise's inside knowledge, eventually reaching Marcus, who connected them with Agent Ramirez. Andrew and Ramirez, and the truth proved more complex than either Richard or Elise had presented. Both had manipulated Nathan, both had withheld crucial information. But Elise had made a choice in those final moments, to protect Nathan and Sophie, to expose operations that should never have been authorized, to break from her handlers and the protection they offered. "The Justice Department called," Nathan says. "They want another deposition next week." Elise nods, the weight of her choices evident in her posture. "Will you ever forgive me?" she asks quietly. Not the first time she's posed this question. Nathan considers her. The manipulation is unforgivable. The lies cut deep. But he also remembers her standing between Sophie and danger during their escape, remembers her refusing extraction when it didn't include him and his daughter, remembers her testimony that has begun to unravel decades of shadowy operations. I'm not sure forgiveness is the right word," he finally says. "But I understand choices made from desperation, from believing the ends justified the means." He thinks of his own military service, the compromises made in the name of greater good. "I understand becoming someone you don't recognize." Elise moves to the window, watching Sophie outside. "And who are we now?" Nathan joins her. Their hands don't touch, but they stand close enough to feel each other's presence. "We're who we choose to be, from this point forward." They watch Sophie in silence. This child finding her voice again. This unexpected family forged in deception but possibly saved by truth. There is no passionate embrace, no promises of eternal love. Instead, there is something rarer. Two people who have seen the worst in each other and still choose to remain, to rebuild, to believe that even lives built on lies can find solid ground. "Someday at a time," Elise whispers. Nathan nods. It's enough. This fragile peace, this careful trust, this second chance neither of them expected to find. Not a fairy tale ending, but perhaps something more valuable. A beginning earned through sacrifice and choice.